In 1988, Eddie Brock goes to church seeking redemption and forgiveness, and instead finds the alien symbiote that bonds with him and eventually becomes Venom. Welcome back to Legends and Lore. I'm Renezuo and with my fellow lore keeper Tom Sweeney, and this week, to assist us with the storied lore of Eddie Brock and Venom in general, we have Super Swim Team 7, a friend of mine who I've done a few things with in the past, and is much more knowledgeable than I am in current stuff for sure. So here,
Hey, thank you for having me.
yeah, yeah, it's
Welcome, bud.
I've been really excited to have something that I feel like was gonna be like a good fit for this. Um, Originally, I had thought maybe the Spider-Man one when we did that, but that was so early on that we didn't want to like tempt fate by bringing guests on too early. But now we're at a point where I think we're good to go and we can talk about Venom stuff. So you were telling me
Oh
something
yeah.
before about the black suit and how it, because I was doing a little fact check there. You were telling me that thing about the black suit prior to its appearance in Secret Wars.
Yeah, so a couple little factoids. Its first appearance, I might be wrong on this, but I think it first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man, and then a couple of months later, the Secret Wars 1 issue happened, and then a couple of weeks later, the Secret Wars issue where the black suit appeared happened. But people didn't know where the black suit had come from for a couple of months. And something that I think is really interesting in terms of like retroactive continuity and how the 616 has adopted or adapted things from other media. Originally, the symbiote didn't make Peter mad. Like, you have the whole Bully Maguire meme, and people think like the Venom suit like is what made him like that. But that's not how it really was in the comics at first. Originally, the black suit just took over his body at night. And
Yeah.
so he would be asleep, and then the black suit would go out on a joyride. And Spectacular Spider-Man kind of adapted that a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until the 90s that they established that it affected Peter's mood and the way he acted, and then every subsequent adaptation after that adapted it. And now the comics are actually going backwards, and there's a book called Symbiote Spider-Man.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering right, he only wore the black suit for like less than 10 issues in the actual run. It might have been closer to 6.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but basically, he went and got rid of the black suit, but by the time he got rid of it, it was so popular that people wanted them to bring it back. So he went and his red and blue suit got destroyed, but Black Cat was like, "Hey, you look better in black. I made you this cloth version of it."
Yeah, she
But
really
then
liked him in the black, man. Like
Yes,
she.
he did. He really did,
And
man.
when you're
it was
Peter
a couple's
Parker,
costume when he had the black suit on.
yeah,
Exactly.
if you're Peter Parker and Black Cat's telling you, "Hey, I like it better when you do this," you just end up doing that. You know what
Why
I'm?
would you
Until
not?
until MJ was like, "Hey, get rid of the suit," and he
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
"Okay,
because she has like
I
PTSD
guess."
from her encounters with Venom.
Yeah, I can't blame
Who
her at all.
Yeah.
wouldn't who exactly wouldn't be like, not really feeling this whole Venom vibe. Remember when he like, I don't know, tried to eat me?
Yeah. Because yeah, he was stalking her to fuck with Spider-Man, and
Hmm.
yeah, I remember. I most of my, like I was telling you guys earlier, most of my stuff is all from like early stuff. Like early, because I stopped reading a lot of the anything with Venom. It was around when I think they were working on killing off Eddie Brock. They gave him the cancer, and then the symbiote didn't want to be bonded to him anymore, or something like that. And I was just like, oh man, they're kind of doing Eddie Brock dirty, so I'm not really gonna keep up on it. And then like years later, I kind of poke my head in, and they're like, oh, there's a planet of the symbiotes, and they're called the Clintar, and all. And I was like, yo, what?
Thanks to
All
Brian
through it.
Michael Bendis, dude.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of trash, man. But like, if it wasn't for him, the way modern comics exist would not be. Like people
Mm-hmm.
clown on Bendis all the time, but they forget like what he did for like comics, and inherently
Yes, preach.
what he's done for like cinema. Because like without Bendis and Hickman and Wade and all of them, like
Mm-hmm.
wrote comics the way they were then, there would be no MCU. There'd be
Yeah.
none of those great characters that we
I
love.
I I will only clown on Bendis for basically House of M, but him getting the Clone Saga to work in Ultimate Spider-Man and just all his other contributions far outweigh me not liking the whole House of M thing.
You didn't like House of
This is
M?
the thing about
I
like
didn't.
Bendis. If you put him on like a team book, he's gonna suck. He's not gonna be able to do it. You put him on Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's gonna be absolute ass. But if you put him on a street level superhero book, like you put him on a character like Luke Cage or Jessica Jones or Teenage Spider-Man and the Defenders,
Which he did.
Yeah.
He his run on Alias was
Mhm.
amazing. And
it's as good. It's like on par with Watchmen. Alias Jessica Jones. It really should be considered up there with Watchmen. It's that good.
it's such
The
a good
show does
comic.
not do it justice.
Hmm.
So
Like
insane, dude.
the
Her
show,
entire journey was beautiful. Like
right?
genuinely, like beautiful.
And you don't even you forget that the Purple Man is even going to show up until like the last 5 issues, and then the show introduces Purple Man in like the first one. But when you're reading the comic, you're like, okay, well, what's Jessica's story? When's Purple Man going to show up? But that wasn't a reveal that came until the back end of the comic, but they put it right at the forefront of the show,
Yeah.
It
which I
wasn't.
think
It
was a
wasn't.
mistake.
It wasn't her main problem. Her main problem was her like completely self-destructive behavior.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and I love Luke in that, and I love Luke in the comic too. Luke Cage is so like great. He's just kind of like, girl, what the fuck's your problem? Why are you so mad about everything? And then she's just like, fuck you, Luke. Let's have sex sometimes. And he's just like, I don't get this girl at all, but she's kind of cool. And her
Hey.
The
learning
one
how to
girl I don't
fly,
have to hold back on because I don't have to worry about crushing her head in the middle of it.
dude. And then with her learning how to fly, that was such a great moment that you never hear about. Everyone talks about, oh, Bendis sucked. His run on X-Men was stupid, and his run on his run on X-Men, X-Men was bad. Guardians was like not that good. But it's like, do you forget like Miles Morales, Spider-Man, his Spider-Man run, him literally saving the Avengers and having it have its leading it to the best run. I'd say like in a comic book team book is like Hickman's run of Avengers. But I think without Bendis like setting the forework and like disassembled and all that, we wouldn't have what we have now as comics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you could
people,
have had Civil War without disassembled a couple years before it.
So
yeah, and they perfect.
what would you guys say is his main contribution for Venom specifically?
I would say his for Venom. What did Bendis? The Planet of the Clintars. That was
Yeah,
all
that was in
him.
his Guardians
There
run,
you
right?
go.
Yeah.
With Flash's Venom.
With was it Ancient Venom? There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that he was Venom Space Knight at that point because they were trying to do a play off of ROM Space Knight from the old
What
school days.
he
And then
was
they were like, oh, well, Hasbro is going to make their own ROM series with IDW. We can't do that. Well, Venom's going to be a Space Knight too. How about that?
We got a better Space Knight with cocaine and hookers.
It was super. I loved this Venom run.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, 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 really cool. I liked it more when it wasn't in space, like when he was on Earth being Venom. I liked that the most.
Flash's Venom was a lot of fun.
It was
It's
really cool.
How
a
long
lot of
was
people.
he Venom?
Maybe for like 4 years in the comics, 5 years.
So
He be-
Eddie is currently Venom again, right?
Yeah,
So what happened was
the Venom symbiote says switched hands a few times. It
Yeah.
seems like all throughout the 2000s, they didn't actually know what they wanted to do with the symbiote. There was a point where it was bonded to this guy named Angela Fortano. Angela
Yeah.
Fortano. I might be mispronouncing that. He was this mobster's son that was trying to prove to his dad that he could take over the family business, and he ended up dead. And then after that, I think it bonded to Matt Gargan, the
Mhm.
original Scorpion.
during
And
the
then
Dark Reign.
Yeah.
yeah, and then after that, I think after that it was, I don't know if it was Eddie Brock again or if it was Flash Thompson.
I think it was Flash right after that because Eddie got the anti-venom suit.
I think the Matt
Right.
It was Lee Price.
I think the Matt Gargan one
That's
is
the Mark.
actually the one that I dislike the most.
Oh, he was the
I
worst
like
one.
the design of it, but I don't like the execution of it.
Right.
I like that he ate people. Like he actually straight up ate people. I thought that was cool. I was like, yo, this is crazy.
It's a huge jump from Matt Gargan, but I mean, you can't
He was
have all of the Spider-Man villains from like, because a lot of the Spider-Man villains from the 60s tend to not be very hardcore and Matt Gargan, I feel like is he's either one from the 60s or 70s, and a lot of those ones are kind of like they're not hardcore dudes, and then you update them, and it turns out that their stuff is like crazy shit, you know, and um,
You know, the thing with Scorpion actually kind of came up again recently in the Absolute Carnage event.
mhm.
It was really
When all the
cool.
Carnage drones are attacking, Scorpion is fighting them, and then he gets like I think it's like paralyzed by one of them, and then
Yeah.
Venom was like supposed to save him, but Venom got overwhelmed and ended up like leaving Scorpion there. So Scorpion got all like pissed at Venom, and he went and he bought a like bootleg War Machine armor from another dimension, painted it black, and then like drew a Venom symbol on it. And then was like, all right, you know what? I'm turning this old War Machine armor into a symbiote buster, and I'm gonna track down Venom and
Damn.
get his ass for leaving me paralyzed.
What happened
Like,
was actually what happened was it was a bunch of drones attacking because what happened is Gargan was fighting Miles Morales in the street. And
right,
the
that
thing
was
is
it.
that Miles was like getting overwhelmed. Like Miles and Gargan were getting overwhelmed, and then Gargan ran off and he left Miles. And then Eddie was like, "Yo, you piece of shit, you get back in there and fight." And he threw him back into the fight, but he ended up throwing him directly into like a super powered like Hulk level strength, like God level Carnage. And
Yeah.
Carnage was like, "Oh, got your spine,"
Well,
broke his
well,
spine,
that's what happens when you
and
fuck
then
over Miles,
paralyzed
man.
him. He tried to fuck over Miles, and Venom was like, "Bro, that's fucked. He's a kid. Go keep fighting." And then he was just like, "I can't keep fighting. My legs don't work anymore."
That's
I
one
was
of
like, "Dang."
that's one of the interesting things that I like about Eddie from way back, and I know that they've kind of like blurred the lines with him a little bit more. But back when he was basically doing the whole like lethal protector thing, he was very much protector of the innocent kind of person, you know. So he would go to town on criminals and stuff like that. Just does not care. Like, well, you do bad stuff, you know, talk shit, get hit. But when it comes to like just regular people, you know, he or like kids or people who are out there like genuinely trying to do good, he would have like these oddly like wholesome moments, you know, even though he's got
Yeah.
this tongue flopping around and these big old teeth, you know, it's like he turns into like a puppy for a little bit, and you're like, man, this
I
guy's
love it.
That's what
I
I
love
liked a
him.
lot about the like '90s comics version of Venom is that he's a
yeah,
giant goofball. He's more like Deadpool than he is like the ultimate version of Venom. And I think the ultimate version of Venom painted a lot of people's ideas of it through like the Ultimate Spider-Man video game. That Venom was
Hmm.
this dark, brooding character. But like my first experience with Venom was in the Neversoft Spider-Man 2000 video game for like PlayStation 1
mm-hmm.
and Dreamcast back in the day.
Classic game.
But absolutely. But in that version, he's voiced by the same dude who voiced Cosmo from Fairly Odd Parents, and he does such a good job at it. Like he is such a fucking dork.
I'm just
Like they go
imagining
to
that
the
that same voice coming out of Venom's mouth.
For
but
me,
like
yeah,
there's
I
this
get.
scene where they got to research something, and it's like 2000, so they don't have the internet at either of their apartments, so they have to go to the Daily Bugle, and he's like, "Are we gonna surf the web?" And it's just like the funniest shit to me. I love that clip so much.
Uh,
For me, Venom. I've always like. I've always thought of Venom as like this a darker shadow of Peter. And
mhm,
I know Venom has moments where he could be like because it Venom depends on the person wearing it mostly.
mhm.
Because what you realize is that you realize the symbiotes are like characters and they can be tricked and abused into being like worse than they would naturally be.
Yeah,
Right,
They
and we've
wouldn't
seen that a lot in the new Extreme
yeah,
Carnage event,
from what
with
I
yeah,
Carnage
exactly.
manipulating a lot of the Life Foundation symbiotes and kind of like getting them to be on his side again after they've been independent for so many years.
from what I
Yeah.
understand, isn't okay. So I'm not 100% on this, so you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The whole thing with the Venom symbiote, the reason why it is the way it is because
You're
it's
gonna say it. It's gonna make you mad, but you're gonna
it
say it.
was it like an imperfect bond with Peter? Is that and it like went crazy because of that,
There are a
or
couple of different answers to that
There,
question. Some
there's
of
a
them more
few.
continuity, like more canon than not. So this I don't think is canon, but it's the more modern explanation. The more modern explanation is that Deadpool went back in time to the original Secret Wars, and he was there in the background of the story. and the Venom symbiote bonded to him before it bonded to Peter.
What?
And that's why the Venom symbiote was so like jokey and like crazy in the 90s, is because it was exposed to Deadpool. Now, I don't think that's canon. I just think it's like funny, like a funny little like in-universe joke thing. I don't think it's the highest version of canon. But the original explanation for that, way back before the Clintar, before they established Null or any of the new stuff, the
Mhm.
original explanation was that the symbiotes bond to their host and then eat their host eventually, and then they move on to a new host. But Venom never ate his host. Venom bonded with the host and then made the host eat other people, and that was really unique among the symbiotes. And the symbiotes were like, "Oh, you're insane. You don't want to eat your host? We're going to leave you trapped on Battle World in this cage." And then
Yeah,
Spider-Man came along and freed him. That was the original explanation.
Huh.
that was the one. That was the one that I was told of when I was younger, because I was like, "Oh, really? Like, he doesn't." I don't know. I remember him being like, he chose not to harm the person that was wearing it. He was like, "I'm kind of like living off this person. Why would I harm them
Yeah.
Hmm.
naturally?"
Yeah.
But I always thought of it as like, well, I hate the idea that that technically might be canon, the whole Deadpool thing, because I kind of hate Deadpool. Like, I
Yeah.
kind of have like a
I'm
really
I'm
serious
I
disdain towards him.
massively dislike Deadpool. If we ever did an episode on Deadpool, it would just be me and Sween sitting here talking about how much we fucking hate Deadpool for 45
See,
minutes to an hour.
I won't say I hate Deadpool, but I will say that I have a certain amount of disdain for his like prominence and how
Yeah.
he's like pushed to the forefront of events like Axis when the villains and heroes swapped sides. I think he was like one of the
Mhm.
main characters in that. Like he shows up in a lot of event books that he really has no business being in.
Deadpool has, like, as a character overall, like when people talk about him or mention him or anything like that, has the same energy as like a couple that compares themselves to Joker and Harley Quinn.
Or
It's
someone that goes to Hot Topic and buys Invader Zim merch.
yeah, it's that same energy, and I fucking
I
despise
hate,
it.
I
That
hate it.
LOL waffles.
I hate it, dude.
Yeah. Oh man,
Because
I hope we get tons.
Chimichangas.
Oh yeah, I hope we get tons and tons of comments from people
what makes it
defending
worse is that
Deadpool.
I've actually read good Deadpool runs. That's why
Mm-hmm.
his run on X Factor
Yeah.
was like, it made me shudder, because I was like, "Oh my God, is this actually Deadpool?"
Yeah.
Like, the character that I hate, and it was so beautiful because in that comic he was like genuinely like the greatest character, like in this team with like Wolverine and all these guys, and he was great, and he wasn't making jokes all the time, and I was like, what is this, like, where did this Deadpool come from? And it was just like beautiful.
Yeah.
But then there's also
He's got a
the
handful
Deadpool
of
with the
decent
meme.
stories, but a lot of his just like zany antics, I'm not feeling it because it's so often inserted into other stories with a more serious tone. So it would
Yeah.
be like, if you're sitting down to watch like Batman Begins, right? And then just fucking Ryan Reynolds strolls onto the screen and starts cracking zany jokes and breaking the fourth wall and all this other shit while, you know, and it's like these tonally do not make sense. And I think
You're
Don't get me
that's
wrong,
watching The Dark Knight
I
and
love
then
Ryan
Rachel.
Reynolds him. I love Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Like, I think that's actually
Mhm.
really
It's a
cool.
good fit, but and I like the movie, but I think
I
the
love
reason
it.
I like the movie is because it sets the tone right away and it's not at odds with other stuff, you know?
See,
That's
I like
true.
Deadpool 1. I think Deadpool 2 kind of sucks ass, but that's for like kind of like dumb reasons kind of, I'll admit. Like I'm not a fan of the concept of fridging women in
Hmm.
refrigerators.
Yeah.
And like that was the first thing they did in the first 25. I know they undid it at the
Yeah.
end of the movie,
The
but in the
fridging
first
thing,
20
oh my
minutes you
God.
fridge one of the strongest characters
Yeah.
from the first
It's
movie.
so it's very sad.
The whole
Um
thing, the whole Kyle Rayner thing of like, girlfriend dead.
Mhm.
Girlfriend
Exactly.
dead.
Dude,
Um so
that Kyle Rayner thing, dude. I found out about it when I was like 13. I was like, yo, he put her in a fridge. He put her in his fridge.
yeah, so I
My uncle was
think
like,
I'm gonna completely ignore Deadpool's involvement with any Venom story, and
That is the best thing you can do.
I'll I'll
you are a
s-
smart
I'll
man.
stick with the other shit where it's like, yo, the Venom symbiote does not like to eat its host, and that's why it's, quote unquote crazy. And then you got the
This
Carnage
is the
symbiote that's
rule.
crazy for a different reason. So,
If the Deadpool thing is canon, then the Star Wars Holiday Special is also canon. So
mm.
think about the way you want to consider continuity before you make that decision for yourself.
How many
Honestly,
at this point in the comics? How how many individual offspring symbiotes are there from Venom
oh,
specifically?
I can
Oh
count if you
God.
want me to try. I can actually count it out. So
There's
there's
all the Life
three.
Foundation
There's
symbiotes.
Riot. There's Screech, Riot, um, Agony.
Is it Screech or
There's
Scream?
I think is it Scream or is it Screech? I thought it
Oh,
was
it's
Screech.
Scream.
Scream.
It's
But
Scream.
now the symbiote kind of like died almost, but was reborn, kind of like
That's what
Anti-Venom, and
Uh,
now
yeah,
she's Silence.
yeah.
oh,
That whole the modern Venom, it's like Donny Cates is this guy. Donny Cates is a guy that like the kid that like would watch Star Wars, play D&D, and like listen to heavy metal. He is that person. He's
yeah.
that
Hmm.
kind of guy. So he's taking everything in like a very like good redempt because like you guys do you guys know about Toxin?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's one I do
Like
know. Yeah.
he made Toxin like like well Toxin's always air quotes been like one of the strongest symbiotes,
Mm-hmm.
but like in his newest run with Toxin, like Carnage is like, you're gonna come back to me, you're my son, and Toxin was like, no, I'm not, and destroyed his psyche. And he was just like,
Hmm.
I'm not fighting this guy no more. That's it. Everybody else deal with Toxin. I'm gonna go over here and do this. And I was like, wow,
Wait, so
that was
Toxin.
bad.
I thought Toxin was a joint offspring of the Venom and Carnage symbiotes. Is it just Carnage?
I think it
He's
was just
Carnage's son.
Carnage.
Carnage's son,
Okay, so
technically.
then Venom is Grandpa. Then I
Uh-huh.
guess.
Yeah, Venom would be Grandpa to
Mhm.
Toxin.
All right, because the symbiotes reproduce just by peeling off a piece and then growing, right? Is that a or is that?
Sort of. It's a little bit different in every version. I think sometimes it's that they like whatchamacallit, they spontaneously like just give birth to other symbiotes and they can't even control it or don't even realize it at times. I think that's how Venom
Oh,
gave birth to Carnage.
yeah, it was
Um,
accidental.
Mhm.
But I know
He
that with the Life Foundation symbiotes, Venom was forced to give birth to some of them, and then I know some of the other symbiotes were cloned from one of the other ones. I can't remember which ones were cloned symbiotes and which ones were others, but I thought it was really interesting that a couple of the Life Foundation symbiotes are artificial. I
Hmm.
think
yeah.
that kind of gets overlooked a lot in the comics. Like if I was a writer, I would bring that up and I would make that like a significant plot point,
Hmm.
especially with what Donnie or not what Donnie well yeah what Donnie Cates did with the Maker. The Maker basically took all the Life Foundation symbiotes and combined them into one symbiote suit that he was wearing, and then
Yeah, he
he
was
like used that in combination with the Ultimate symbiote, which is like fully synthetic, and he had this like giant symbiote suit, right? And then the Life Foundation symbiotes end up leaving him, but he still has the Ultimate suit, so he still has the main synthetic symbiote.
yeah, and then he did tests where he combined both the synthetic and non-synthetic versions to make a like crazy strong symbiote. To the point like when Venom first fought him, he like beat the shit out of him. He was like, "What the fuck's going on?" Even considering now that Venom, this is before the end of like the storyline, before Venom became like a Thor-esque like Cap Silver Surfer level character,
Hmm.
but like he still hurt him really bad. It's like current
I'm gonna
Venom,
drop a picture in chat of it just because I love that design.
like current Venom, like when we think about Spider-Man and Venom, like how there was once upon a time where Spider-Man was weaker than Venom, but he wasn't like way weaker than Venom. Now Spider-Man is not even in the same ball. Like even at the beginning of the run, he was not even in the same ballpark as Venom anymore. Like Venom was a way more powerful character than Spider-Man is. And Peter is just like, bro, like I don't exactly fit here anymore. Like there was a point in Maximum in I think it was Absolute Carnage where like they go to Ravencroft to try to get like Norman Osborn because for a period of time he was bonded with the Carnage symbiote too,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Yo,
Oh,
guy, it's like I'm gonna hold this door, Peter. You punch through this brick wall." Peter's like, "Bro, I can't just punch through a brick wall." And he's like, "Bro, stop being a bitch. Punch through the brick wall. I'm gonna hold them back." And then Peter's like, "All right, I gotta do it." And he's punching, and he's like, Peter's like, obviously he left like 10 tons, so he's like punching, and he's like hurting this wall, but he's not breaking it. And then Venom was just like, "Dude, please hurry up." And then Venom was like, "All right, get out my way." And he's like, one bang the
Yeah.
wall disappeared,
Well,
and he just flew off
I
with
think that
him.
was something that we touched on in the Spider-Man episode, though. Too, is that Peter instinctively holds back. he
Oh,
has a natural, like, he pulls his punches.
but he pulled his punches against people that can't. Like he'll pull his punches against like Doctor Ock,
Right.
you know,
But I
and like
imagine that
Scorpion.
there's a certain amount, because I remember, I can't remember the story. There was a story where he's fighting Venom on an island or something like that.
I remember that one. That's when he faked his death.
Yeah, yeah, and he realizes that if he goes all out on Venom, he could beat him, but then what? Like, he can't kill him. Like, he's not going to kill him. He's Peter Parker. And then after he recovers, he's just going to come and get him. So he's like, "Oh, I'm going to fake my death." But it's around that time where he realizes that, like, Venom is one of those opponents that he can really go to town on and actually do some significant damage. But I think almost every other time, um, Peter is basically instinctively holding back. So when someone's like, "Yo, punch a brick wall," it's, you know, so I think Spider-Man could break that wall, but Peter Parker has trouble committing to it, whereas someone like Venom has no problem committing to, like, we're going to break this shit. Like,
I think the thing with Spider-Man that makes him different, like Spider-Man does hold back very often, but when he fights certain characters, because I know because the biggest thing about one of his biggest moments is the death of Jean the Wolf, actually,
mhm.
because when Spider-Man realized, like, 'cause Spider-Man, he'll fight hard, like he'll be like, all right, I gotta hold you back, like when he's fighting Hulk, when he's fighting like someone like Thor, when he's fighting someone like Miss Captain Marvel, something like that. Like these guys that like can take his hits and probably laugh even if he tried to really hurt them.
Mhm.
He'll throw a serious punch at them. But when he's like fighting people that, like, when he fought Matt Gargan, right? Matt Gargan is stronger than him, but he's not hitting Matt Gargan in his face as hard as he can. And then when Ock did, he knocked his jaw off because, like, it doesn't matter. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime is much stronger than I am.
Mhm.
But if I get the right kind of strike, I could probably break his jaw.
Yeah,
You know,
strength is not necessarily directly, it doesn't directly correlate to durability.
yeah. So like so often he's just like, I'm gonna like ease out and like not really try to kill this person I'm fighting. But
Usually
like
the best measuring stick for, like, Spider-Man's strength is you got to actually go by his clones, because they don't have the same, like, moral compunctions that he does. So, like, the Scarlet Spider, Ben Reilly Scarlet Spider, he can fuck up Venom, or at least he used to be able to in, like, the 90s and 2000s. A lot's changed since then, but he can fuck up Venom, and
Same thing with Kane too, kind of. I think that Kane even has like a Venom blast that's sort of similar to Miles's.
I think Kane
he has a
is,
Mark of Kane.
yeah, Kane is specifically, um, I think they do specifically say that he is stronger than Peter, or at least he was. I think
He's
once
the
he was,
Yeah, because he's like canonically
He's
the
strongest.
other now.
yeah, once he was remade, and his face got, fixed and all that other shit. I think he was basically at the same point as Peter for a little while, and then now that he's canonically the other, I think he's stronger again. So he had, like, a dip.
Yeah, Kane is stronger than Peter. Like Kane is stronger. Ben is equal,
Hmm.
and the feats that they show off are usually like how you like range it. Because when you see Miles is not as strong as Peter yet. Obviously, he's a kid.
Yeah,
When
he's
it comes
still
to
coming along.
Ben is like just as strong as Peter, to the point that when they fight, it's always like an even playing ground. I would say that Peter has more experience, so I would say probably if Peter and Ben like ever like really duked it out, like I would put my money on Peter Parker only because hasn't died like 8 times,
Yeah.
so he might itch out in that fight. But when it comes to like just strength and like how strong they are when they exhibiting like their physical properties, Ben they go pretty hard. The other spiders, they
Yeah.
definitely try hard to win.
The another I'm just kind of like, we're kind of going into left field here, but it'll be fine. We'll come back. Uh, the One of the interesting things that I found was that the female spiders are stronger than the male spiders.
I
Which
didn't know that.
is a thing that they established in the MC2 universe for Spider Girl.
Was
Um,
Ah,
Mayday stronger than Peter?
yeah, she's physically stronger than Peter, even as a teenager. So He has like the 10 times multiplier. Hers is a 12 times multiplier.
Really? I thought it was the opposite from what I remember, but I guess it could be real.
I think the reason they did that was because like in nature, the majority of like spider species, the female is larger and meaner than the male. So they're like, all right.
That does make sense.
So I thought that was kind of cool, but I don't know. I don't think that carries with like the symbiotes, like because they're like their own thing. They've kind of like gotten to the point where they've divorced the symbiotes from the spider
spiders.
lore. You know, it's just Venom, and it's just like, oh, he happened
It's
to be attached to Spider-Man at one point, so that's why.
it's funny you mention that because there's this great moment at the end of Absolute Carnage. So at the start of Absolute Carnage, when Eddie comes to Spider-Man and is asking for help, and he's like, "Listen, man, I'm involved with all these elder gods, and I'm in over my head, and I have a son now, and I don't know what to do." And then Peter Parker is just sitting there at this diner with him, like, "Hey, you gonna finish those fries?" And then at the end of the run, they're at that same diner again, and now Venom is like, he's become God King, Venom essentially. They call him King Eddie now, and he's like the god of the symbiotes. And Spider-Man is like, "Look, I'm really sorry. I feel guilty. I feel like I brought this whole thing down upon you, and that you never would have had to have deal with any of this King in Black shit if I hadn't brought the symbiote suit back to Earth with me." And Venom is like, "Dude, you have no idea. The symbiotes have been here forever. There was a
Way
troop of
before then.
Shield symbiotes all the way back in Vietnam. They, the whatchamacallit, the symbiotes have been here so long that you can track back to the legendary, the legend of Beowulf, and
Yeah.
in Beowulf, the Grendel from Beowulf was a symbiote too. So symbiotes have been
Wow.
on Earth for thousands of years. And then Peter's like, "Wow, you have no idea how much of a burden you just took off of my shoulders." And
Wow.
then and Venom's like, "Yeah, believe me, I know everything there is to know about self-loathing."
So what? God King Eddie.
Yeah,
What?
he's currently like null, but like not crazy and evil. He's like a
Yeah, it's
god of the
great.
symbiote.
How,
Crazy.
All the
so
symbiotes call him King Eddie. It's so great.
how did this come to pass? This is something I'm not
Oh,
familiar
let
with.
me explain this. This is
It's really dope.
fantastic.
Really
So
dope.
there is the planet of the symbiotes, right? And
Yeah.
the planet of the symbiotes wasn't a planet of the symbiotes at all. It wasn't their home world. It was a cage, and it was like a cluster of symbiotes wrapping themselves around Null. That way they could keep him at bay and keep him asleep.
Is that
That way they
Clintar?
could go out. Uh-huh.
Okay.
That way the Clintar could go out across the galaxy and do their own thing and be their own race without being controlled by their creator or their master, Null.
Hmm.
And then Carnage is like, "Wait a minute, this is where we come from? We have what kind of origins? And we're doing this stupid human shit?" And so Carnage is brought back to life by this cult of like symbiote worshipping like villains essentially.
Yeah.
And then Carnage comes back and like eats all of them, tears out their spines, and is like, "Oh, so everyone that was once bonded to a symbiote has a codex. And that codex, when I get all of them, it's gonna help me get more powerful and wake up Null. Then I'm gonna summon Null
Oh
here,
Christ.
and I'm gonna steal his power, and I'm gonna be the god King
I feel
Symbiote."
like reviving Carnage is
It
right up
was
there
a
with the
cult.
whole like reviving Dracula. You know,
Yeah,
it's
it's a,
like
Yeah,
it was a
right.
cult. Literally, it was a cult that brought him back, and they like first they brought him back. First they because initially he fought it was from this is actually from another Bendis thing that kind of created it, and people don't give respect to. But Bendis had Sentry in Avengers in Avengers Breakout. I'm messing New Avengers issue like 4. Sentry and Carnage fought. Carnage had no clue he was getting into. Sentry broke him through the raft, beat his ass, then took him into space and ripped him in two.
Jesus.
Uh, he completely defenestrated him. Like it was like a kid fighting a boxer. It was really bad.
Imagine just this 8-year-old run up on Mike Tyson and just bam.
and what you call it? They so Kidus Cassidy in canon was dead for like 11 years.
Right.
So they
Halo.
brought they resurrected him, and they were like, "We're gonna bond you to the Grendel, the big dragon symbiote." For some reason, this cult that had the Darkhold thought this was a good idea, so they brought him back. They bonded him with the Grendel. He was like obscenely strong because the Grendel was much stronger than average like symbiote.
It's a dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he then after that somehow got in contact with I think he got another symbiote somehow. He got one other one and he just became like way stronger. He was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to like bring Null here, kill him and take his power."
See,
And
Venom and
that's it.
Carnage had been broken off from the hive mind, right?
Yeah,
And
they
then
were
Carnage
separated.
tried to make a hive mind of his own. That way he could control the symbiotes in the same way that Null had.
And
Okay.
he did it for a little bit until which is really cool at the there was a point where there was symbiotes bonded to Captain America, to Ben Grimm, Wolverine, and who was the other character? And Hulk, I
Oh,
think.
that was an event, wasn't it? It
It was Carnage
was
Oh
USA.
yeah, that was Carnage USA, yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right.
he like took over an entire small town
Yeah.
and Shield had to quarantine off the town and like it was like a whole thing. I forget how he died again after that. Or was that where Sentry killed him? Was in Carnage USA? I
No,
can't
no,
remember.
no. That's when Cletus Cassidy got the second symbiote that got him to the point where he was right before King in Black, like
Gotcha.
right before it. So he bonded with he so they all bonded with everybody. So what happened is that Eddie was like, I'm going to because Reed Richards, Evil Reed, was taking the codexes off of the people that were like on like the heroes, and he was storing them. So he went and Eddie bonded with all of those symbiotes that gave him like this ridiculous amp and power. But at that point, he was probably like as strong as like strong enough to defeat like Carnage with like uber
Are
powers.
the
And then
codexes basically like a genetic memory?
sort of like a resin left on people. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, like when the symbiote leaves your body, they leave the codex behind in your spine. And Eddie Brock had been exposed to Venom for so long and the symbiote for so long that his codex grew its own symbiote back and made him anti-Venom. And something similar happened with Flash, and that's what made Flash Agent Anti-Venom.
Hmm.
Okay. I gotcha.
But so the big thing with Carnage and Venom coming to a head at the end of Absolute Carnage is that Venom knew that if he beat Carnage, it would wake up Null, and Null would be on his way to Earth. Or Null was gonna make a beeline for Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, do I take down my biggest enemy ever and damn the planet, or like how do I contain this? What do I do?
Yeah, because
And the
you
Venom
can't.
symbiote ends up bonding with Hulk in order to like fight off Carnage, but that might have made things worse. Like this might be a little bit of a spoiler. It might not. They haven't did anything with this yet. But so Carnage was tapping into Venom Hulk, right?
Right.
Tapping into his mind, and he saw the green door. And on the
Yeah.
other side of the green door is Gamma Hell and the One Below All and all the stuff from Immortal Hulk. And
Right.
the
Right.
writer for Donny Cates' Venom and Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk, they're about to trade characters. So the dude from Venom is going to take on Hulk. The dude from Hulk is going to take on Venom. And both of these stories have their characters taking on elder gods and then literally like becoming achieving godhood themselves. Like there are points where Thor is called each of them gods at this point. It's more prominent with a character like Venom than it is with Hulk right now because Hulk hasn't finished wrapping up yet.
So
But I
did
think that they're going to do some kind of a big
We're not even done.
crossover between the
And
elder
then we're
gods.
not even talking about Thor yet. Thor just it's insane currently now too. Everything he writes is like Thor beat Galactus, like soloed him, and Thor is currently now like has the power cosmic, and he
damn
has the Odin Force, and
damn.
like he's like that boy, like he's the dude. Like when everybody was fighting Null, everyone was getting like fucked. Everyone was getting fucked in a major way
Yeah.
until Thor came, and Thor and Null was like, "Oh, this guy might actually hurt me."
This guy's
Oh
got some
man,
juice. This guy's got
I
the
love how
juice.
Venom ended up beating Null too. So Venom had lost his symbiote, and the symbiote was trying to fight Null on its own, and the Venom symbiote was losing. And
Mhm.
Eddie Brock was like almost dead, and he was in a hospital bed, and they thought he was gonna die. And then all of a sudden, out of fucking nowhere, the Enigma Force shows up, and it turns him into Captain Universe. And then he comes down, and he's like this Venom version of Captain Universe, still doesn't have a symbiote. And they reveal that the opposite of the symbiote is somehow the power cosmic, which is also the opposite of Gamma from Immortal Hulk. I don't know what they're doing with that. I think it's going to all tie in together later.
That
But
it
so he
kind of
takes
makes
Lance
sense
Cummins.
because
Well,
did
the Enigma Force makes sense because of the fact that it's a source that always it needs to bond with somebody to exist,
isn't
and
Mhm.
it's like
wasn't the
very
first
particular.
symbiote the fucking sword The
Yeah, the all black, the Necro sword.
yeah, and that thing was made for wasn't it made in the void
of a
from
celestial
a
day.
celestial? Yeah. Yeah, so
Mhm.
that's the first so that does kind of actually like
It
Jesus.
even ties in. It even ties in further than that because there was a series called Minimum Carnage,
Yeah, I remember that
where
one.
they went to I was called the miniverse. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's the microverse.
Yeah.
They went to the microverse and they literally were like, "Oh, the Enigma Force is from here. Like
Hmm.
that thing is it's based in this reality.
Hmm.
It comes up to where you
Yeah.
guys are and it works there, but like it comes from there. So technically it
It's
already saw Venom. It already saw a Venom down there. And it was like, oh yeah, this guy's probably someone I'm gonna have to bond with eventually. And it's just crazy. It's like it's just
it's
weird
crazy.
how like how
You've got like
much
a
Venom became full
you've
circle.
got like a Tolkien level amount of lore here that
Oh
you
yeah,
got to get down into.
Literally.
But once
and you know what the power bump that he got on top of the whatchamacallit, on top of the Enigma Force was?
well, what
Dude steals Silver Surfer's surfboard and
And
then
Thor's
steals Thor's
hammer.
hammer and combines them into a battle axe.
that sounds pretty
That's
rad.
that's how metal Donny Kate is.
That
It's like,
sounds
yeah, this
metal
works.
as fuck, dude.
And
That's
he the
You
dog
just
shit out
see
of him.
Thor, and Thor is like shocked that someone has taken his hammer from him by summoning it, not by picking it up, but by summoning it just with his palm, the palm of his hand.
yeah.
And then he does the same thing to Silver Surfer, and Silver Surfer isn't shocked. Silver Surfer is just smiling because he's like, "Oh, I've seen this before.
Well,
This is gonna be good."
I feel like I feel like Silver Surfer gets clowned on a lot because he was established at one point as like a benchmark of power. You know, like a lot of people were like, okay, here's the comparison. You know, Silver Surfer, and I feel like right around the time that Cable shattered Silver Surfer's surfboard back during the Deadpool Cable thing, I feel like ever since then, Silver Surfer cannot catch a break. Because I think in that same year or the year after, it was very close. They had Zombie Hulk bite off Silver Surfer's head. And it just, from then on, Silver Surfer is just kind of like the dude that people go to. Like he's just a stop on the way to cooler shit, you know? Like it's like, all right,
I
first,
feel like that was true for like the two like I because also Donny Cates again
yeah.
wrote Silver Surfer Black, and in that comic
Good.
Silver Surfer was weakened and he was like fighting Null by himself. Like he was like very weak and he was like, I'm going, and then he became the surfer. He became the what is it called? He became
He
the
bonds with this like symbiote type thing, but it's like an ancient version of it, kind of. And it starts to like take over his body and kind of like almost infect him. But it turns him from silver into like black.
Fallen One. That's his name. There you go. He
Hmm.
becomes a Fallen One for a while, where he's like a black Silver Surfer. His color becomes black because he exhausted all the light he had from the power cosmic. Like he's also been like, I think with modern like recently in like the new resurgence, because I'm considering like post, because there was like the 2000s. There's like that's what I call the Civil War era. Then it was the
Yeah.
Dark Reign, and then it was the Heroic Age. Then it was Marvel Now, and then it was Secret Wars. And I think post Secret Wars there was Marvel Now 2.0. But right after that, in Marvel Legends or Legacy,
Mm-hmm.
they did a lot of good work, like making every character not just a piss mark anymore. Because I felt for a long time, a lot of characters were just like, "Oh, you're strong, but you get beat up." Like Thor,
Yeah.
Thor for the longest was like a strong, hugely strong character, constantly getting like shit on by people.
That was yeah. It was. I remember that. I kind of got the same vibe back during World War Hulk. You know, when they were like,
Yeah,
"All
I
right,
just read.
we're just gonna have all these powerful characters that we've stated like their benchmarks, and we're gonna have Hulk tear through them like tissue paper, just so that you know he's super angry." And
Speaking of Silver Surfer, he was in that book too, and he was on Sakaar, and somehow they put one of the obedience discs on
On
him.
him, I was like,
Yeah, like
"How did
that
they
never made
do
sense
that?"
to me.
I
yeah,
was like, "How did someone manage to do that?" Do you know that Silver Surfer's like Silver Surfer, like a person that I could see beat Silver Surfer, and I wouldn't be like, that's kind of weird. Is like Thanos. Like if Thanos beat Surfer's ass, I'd be like, that makes sense.
yeah,
Thanos is literally broken.
like it feels appropriate, but then they have
But
like all
like
these.
everyone else, like they put an obedience collar on him, and he's like this guy can control like the fundamental ports. Like early Silver Surfer, like in the 70s,
Hmm.
could like rewind time,
Yeah.
like
He was
kill
like he
people,
was the
nullify radiation.
he
Like it's
was the
insane.
Deus Ex Machina who could just show up in a Fantastic Four comic and be like, "Yo, I'm resetting this shit." Like that all that shit we just did. We're gonna reset it. Oh, that big motherfucker. I'm just gonna kill him. Like that was like his thing.
And I
But
understand like they had to rein in comics because like for
yeah.
probably for a while, like a lot of it was like really like not you can't really have stories going on like that. I can see where that problem comes from.
Hmm.
But like you can't have comics where these characters are just always going to be the strongest, always going to do something that like you can't exactly stop or deal with.
Yeah,
That makes
they're
sense.
not gonna stay interesting that way. You know, you got
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
that
at
dude
a
makes
who's
point
always
they
on
got
top.
yeah, they
that
got to be
entirely makes
characters.
sense.
They can't be walking, talking plot devices.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
so when it comes to Venom and Null, how did Venom beat Null?
So he
Uh,
took the Enigma Force,
Right.
Mjolnir, and Silver Surfer's Power Cosmic, and like combined it all
Yeah.
and used it to beat Venom on. I mean, used it to beat Null on two fronts. He like beat him physically, and then he went inside of the hive and basically took control of the hive from him too. And so the book ends right, and like you see, like all the symbiotes are still there and they're flying around. But the thing is, they're not being controlled by Null anymore. They're like free. And like one of the last panels from King in Black is you see Venom up in the sky flying with all the symbiotes. And it's just like really significant in a big
Oh, so
way.
he's like a liberator figure because he ripped Null basically out of the core of this
yeah.
hive mind
Mhm.
and liberated all of the symbiotes.
But
Exactly.
I'm
And
getting like
then
really big Paul Atreides vibes from that because it's like, oh, you liberated them, but and I feel like some really not good stuff is gonna happen because they're all free.
Yeah.
Because that like it was a whole planet full of them.
Yeah, I
So
mean, you're
like
gonna
now
have
they're
some of
gonna
them that are
bond with
pretty
like
decent guys. You know, symbiotes are like, "Yo, I just want to go be a carpenter," but then you're gonna have a bunch of these other ones. You're gonna have like, you know, your Stalin symbiote, you know, or
I was thinking more or less like
the
they're gonna bond with people. And
yeah,
when they bond with people, it's gonna lead to like really ridiculous situations.
yeah,
That I'm excited to see how they're gonna tackle it. I'm really excited. And also Dylan, the son of Venom, is gonna have like we're gonna see what he's gonna be up to now next, which is insane. Like it's just there's so much going on with this character.
Son of Venom
this
sounds
might
like
be
a
like
bad movie title, actually.
this might be like reaching more into like heavy spoiler territory. But so the very last issue of the
You're good with spoilers. The only spoiler I don't want right now is for the Let There Be Carnage movie because I'm seeing it this weekend.
I got you.
So it's
So
the only
Eddie is
thing
like
that's off limits for me right now.
I got you. So Eddie is like he's basically, like I said, King Eddie. All the symbiotes kind of respect him. The last issue opens up and Eddie is talking to the Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's at a diner with Spider-Man at the same time.
Mm.
And the way he's doing that is that he can like sit in this chair and it's like an antenna that amplifies his symbiote powers across the galaxy.
There's like a
And
throne.
basically he
Oh,
can possess any symbiote. So he's got all these different symbiotes in different places, and they like turn into the form of him.
like he
Um,
can telepresence to an avatar somewhere on a distant world and just be there instead of having to
Yeah.
physically go there.
and they explained that basically he's not like no, where he just like forces himself into that symbiote's body. Like he'll ask like, "Hey, can I come in here?" And the symbiotes are usually like, "Yeah, that's totally cool. We love you, King Eddie."
You're the
Um,
king.
But I think that says a lot too. Like, they just call him King Eddie,
Yeah,
Like it's not like they call him king, it's not like they call him master or anything like there's a relationship there that they've never had before. Like the entire Donny Cates run is centered around the concept of abusive relationships.
yeah.
So Eddie was abused by his father as a child, and then he had an abusive relationship with the symbiote. And the symbiote went on to infect his ex-wife that's dead now, and
Mhm.
impregnated her with Eddie's own sperm, which led to the birth of Dylan. Yeah, I know. Um,
It's really
so
fucked.
then not
It's a
only that,
series of serious fuck situations. Like actually,
Venom
Jesus.
was manipulating Eddie's memory to lock away his personal trauma and keep him from knowing certain things. That way, the Venom symbiote could like stay bonded with Eddie because it was afraid
Damn.
of Eddie experiencing his own trauma.
That's
And one of those
insane.
things was the kid that they had had. But basically, so his kid is being raised by his own abusive father. So he goes home and he sees this kid there and he doesn't understand it. And then it finally kind of like clicks for him after he has this whole thing with Venom. And he ends up going back home and like hulks out into Venom and is like, "We're taking our son." And then because Dylan had come to him first, and Dylan was like, "I know what we got to do. We got to kill our dad." And then Venom's like, "What? No, we can't do that. No, that's not an option, friend." But
That's a
so
bad thing. We that's a
you
bad thing.
have Eddie throughout the run, and where that's paralleled is that the Venom and all the symbiotes, they've had abusive relationships with their own creator as well, with Null.
Yeah.
And so Eddie and Venom, when they're with each other, they don't know how to have a healthy relationship at all. But
Mm.
it's through their mutual care for Dylan that they both learn to like accept each other and work together rather than against each other. And it's like how when parents have a kid,
Yeah.
this doesn't always happen, but sometimes the relationship is improved a lot by the kid just by having a mutual goal to work towards together.
Yeah.
But so basically, after Eddie becomes King Eddie, he doesn't need the symbiote so much anymore. So the symbiote turns into like a pit bull kind of and runs around with Dylan and protects him. So
Kind of wholesome.
because Eddie can, I know, right? But
Yeah.
Eddie can turn into Venom and he can like hive mind with like remotely with Venom no matter where he is. So there's no need for them to stay permanently bonded anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they're coming home. The Venom symbiote went to go pick up and walk Dylan home from school, and then Dylan gets cornered by Jack-o'-lantern and is like almost killed, and then the Venom symbiote takes him over. But it looks a little bit different because it's got a tail like a dragon now, and he's got chains, kind of like Spawn. So then you see him come back to the roof of their apartment building, and Eddie's waiting for him with a cane, just looking at him, smiling like he's damn proud. And then Dylan and Venom both are like, "We're so sorry. We shouldn't have done that." And then Eddie looks at him and puts his hand on his shoulder. And he's like, "Son, you think I didn't know this would happen? There is no safer place in the galaxy than with that symbiote. I'm proud of both of you."
Yeah.
But like that is such a stark contrast from the way that Eddie's father was like, "You're a piece of shit. You'll never do anything. You fucking ruined me."
Yeah.
It's
That's
so drastically different the way these two characters like where how far they come by the
yeah,
end of that
he's
run.
he's definitely come a long way from his humble beginnings in the 80s as this kind of
Bro,
just dark
he's-
Spider-Man who was getting his ass beat by the Punisher with a fucking sound gun or whatever the hell,
yeah,
like
like he really grew as a character. He's become, and I think that is like that is the main focus for like a lot of the change in characters recently.
mhm.
But like I love he's truly grown, and now like there's moments where like you think of like, oh, what's because Dylan's gonna become the new Venom if I'm not mistaken. He's gonna become the person that's gonna be like really
Uh-huh.
worrying about what's happening. So it's really good to see all he's come from, because I remember Venom being like fighting Wolverine and like regularly just making Peter's fucking life hell, to the point that like Peter was like, I can't beat this guy. I'm gonna fake my death.
Yeah.
Into now he's like become like truly a great hero. Like someone the Avengers are willing to call on for help. Someone that like him, like the relationship between him and Peter is so genuinely fantastic. Like him and Peter like talk to each other. Like, and there was a moment where in King in Black where like he first fights Venom. No, in Maximum Carnage, Absolute Carnage, when he first fights Carnage, and he gets beat really bad, and the first person he goes to is Peter Parker, like immediately, and he's like, "I need help," and Peter's like, "Ah, dude, I hate symbiotes,
Yeah,
but
but I
I
am
will help
Peter
you. I
Parker.
will, I will, I will help you." And it's just shown the growth and the evolution and like the character, which is really, really, really like it warms my heart to see them take that idea and like go so far with it.
All right, so real quick, I want to jump into. We didn't get a lot of questions because we haven't done this before. We haven't actually asked people for questions.
Oh, one person left one on my quote retreat. Would you mind if we started there?
Hold on, just a second.
I can link it in the chat real quick
Why?
because I already have an answer for this one, and we
Okay,
already had it earlier.
yeah, we'll start with this one. So it's on. This one was left on Swim's Twitter. Who would you consider to be the worst symbiote ever?
And that was by my bud Chuck Connex. Now, I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. It's one of those things where if I had a nickel, I wouldn't be rich, but it's weird that it's happened more than twice. Venom, the fucking Deadpool getting a symbiote. Every time it happens. Every time. Now, the black suit with the lightsabers, it looks cool. It makes for a cool action figure. It doesn't make for a cool thing in the story. And there's like so many different versions of it too, right? Like there's the cool looking Venom suit, and then there's also Venom Pool, who's this like
Ugh.
Hulkish version of Deadpool that like is just like the normal Deadpool costume, but with like a Venom face on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happened like 6 or 7 times. There's so many different versions of Deadpool bonded with symbiotes, but it's like why do you need that? Why do you need to give that character that power boost? I don't get it.
I hate Deadpool so much, and every time I hear about that character, it makes me sad.
What? Who?
I really hate him.
Do you concur that that is the worst symbiote in the comics?
I think it's between that and like I don't like Matt Gargan with the symbiote,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, the story that he was in was such a good story. I hate him with a symbiote because he was kind of lame,
Mm-hmm.
but like seeing him like getting pheromones and like calming him down and him acting like he was on estrogen and stuff like that, like that was so funny. And it was really good because I liked that. I liked the conversations between him and like like not Hades, Ares.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was like this is just like you're just such a terrible Venom. Like you're not even like you're just lame. You're just lame, dude.
I think
He's
so.
the Dakin version of Wolverine.
So yeah, I
Oh my
definitely
god.
I definitely dislike the Matt Gargan Venom, but as far as like symbiotes at large, there was I can't remember if this was in the comics, and forgive me for kind of stepping outside of the comics if that's the case, but from the old Spider-Man cartoon, do you guys remember Spider-Side?
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah, where
One of the
it's
clones?
That was even a thing.
Is that one of the clones?
Spider-Side is I think it's the Carnage symbiote bonded to Peter Parker, but not Peter
Wait, no,
Parker.
Spider Side was a
It was
clone.
Ben Riley, right? It was Ben Riley with the Carnage symbiote?
Yeah, Spider Carnage is different, but yeah, Spider Carnage was Ben Riley bonded to Carnage.
Okay, all right. I think that might be the one I'm actually thinking of. Whatever the Carnage. I remember it from the cartoon, and I remember it looks cool, and its action figure is really rad. Like, cause I was a kid, but
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I got that Marvel Legend.
it's like I don't know. It's so tonally ridiculous because it's just like, ooh, we're gonna do evil, crazy Spider-Man, and it's just the execution of it is just so bad. And then I think how they eventually bring him down is like with Uncle Ben. Like Uncle
Oh
Ben like shows up,
no.
and it's like, oh come on, man, like
Oh yeah, in the cartoon.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
remember that.
yeah,
They did Spider-Verse like 10, 20 years before Spider-Verse was even a thing.
yeah.
They did.
They did. Yeah, and it wasn't Spider Verse at the time. It was just fucking around with different versions of Spider Man because action figures. Because that's the main driving force behind that shit at that time with any cartoon. Really, it's
I
just
mean,
like,
Giant Force for anything in cartoons, period. They're
yeah,
just like, oh, can you sell
yeah,
toys?
we gotta sell
All
toys. We
right.
gotta sell toys. It's like, oh, and it's still a fact that kind of remains today. Unfortunately, like all of fucking Young Justice got canceled because it wasn't selling action figures, and
They
it's like,
canceled that whole show,
So
dude.
mad.
but it's like,
That blew my
And
mind. They
it's
we
like,
canceled that
watched Young
entire
Justice season
show.
3.
yeah,
The animation fucking sucks. It's like Korra,
yeah,
where like the later episodes, like they suck ass because the budget was cut so much.
yeah.
That's how season 3 is exactly. Like it doesn't look anything like season 1.
Yeah, and
It really sucks.
it's unfortunate that the whole thing got canceled for that fucking reason because they don't know, like they're so reliant on these toy sales. It's like, yo, the audience for Young Justice is actually very largely female, and if you're not selling them action figures and you came up with literally anything else, they would fucking buy it. Like it's just not action figures. Throw some,
Literally.
Sure, it's like
yeah,
come out with trade paperbacks of the comic collections because Young Justice is one of those rare examples where the comic book tie-ins actually matter to the story.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, like genuinely.
yeah.
Like
Okay,
the dude who wrote it, Greg Wiseman, is like like I know that I shouldn't use this word like this, but like is like autistic with like his obsession with continuity, and like he has like his own private wiki written for the Young Justice characters to help keep track of things and like referencing events that happen in comics like the Killing Joke. So like he has whole ideas for like the Killing Joke and how it played out in the Young Justice version, even though they'll never ever show it.
That's wild. That's crazy.
Right? And he
So
literally censors his sticky notes whenever he posts like sticky boards up on Twitter because I think that he spoiled something about a Gargoyles revival coming back soon.
mm,
But McFarlane Toys is making Gargoyles figures now, which I think is like a huge sign that something's going to happen there soon. But I'm
I'm
getting off
so
tangent now.
excited because like I love Keith David, so like I'm so excited because he might be back, and that just makes me happy.
it's the best reason to really pen something new for Gargoyles. It's just like, yo, I like Keith David, so that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. All right, so I'm gonna grab another question here. Okay, so this is one that I actually thought was fairly interesting, just because it kind of lets you play around with like certain nuances of the character. From Ryan Lucchese on Twitter here. Does the symbiote bring out your dominant traits or just allow you to be who you really are?
Well, it depends on the context. Because like, if we're gonna go strictly comic, like if we're gonna go comic sticklers,
Mm-hmm.
then it doesn't really bring out who you really are as much as the symbiote. It gets magnified by the aspects of your personality, therefore kind of magnifying its bad habits and bad tendencies.
Mm,
So it's a series of like which came first, chicken or the egg, you know?
yeah.
I think modern iterations have kind of retconned like newer ideas. Like I said earlier, originally it just controlled his body when he was sleeping, but now in the modern comics, there's a new story called Symbiote Spider-Man, which takes place during the 6 issues where he was in the black suit.
Mm-hmm.
And in this new story, they've retconned it to the point where it did affect his mood and it did turn him and but you know a lot of people don't like that book because it's Greg Traces All His Art Land that does it. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, they've kind of retconned that. It's a tricky question to answer, but I think that one thing that might be worth
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
considering
Hold up,
is
hold up,
that
hold up. Greg Land, isn't he the one that doesn't he trace like Playboy pinups and
yeah, he
stuff like?
traces
What was he
Playboy and like
doing?
literally straight up fucking porn
Why did
for
they
his
grab
like
this
covers.
guy for that project? There are no hot chicks in that story.
There's one reason for it, and that's that Venom was selling really, really well, better than Venom has ever sold before. And
yeah.
Spider-Man always sells good. So it's like, okay, well, how do we combine the concepts? Okay, well, we're gonna find someone that can write a story really fast, and then we're
Oh,
gonna find someone that can do art
it's
really fast to
deadlines.
capitalize it.
Deadlines.
100%. It's 100% deadlines.
Okay,
But
I
like,
that does
I
make a little
haven't
more
really.
sense. That's why Rob Liefeld was working for, the way he was for so long, is because he was basically just ripping off everybody else, and because he's ripping off everybody else and doesn't have to think about what he's drawing. Yeah,
Fuck their feet. The inker will handle it.
yeah, the inker
Yeah.
that's totally their job, right? So you guys think it depends on the era that we're talking about, but
Yeah,
Very
another
much
thing
so.
worth considering to like kind of answer that question
yeah.
is that so Carnage had never been exposed to any symbiotes beforehand.
Mhm.
His first exposure to any kind of life form was Cletus Cassidy. So, you
Yeah.
know, if a baby was raised by Cletus Cassidy, that baby's going to come out fucked up. So,
At,
you know,
at least.
Toxin didn't come out as like fucked up, and neither did Scream or Flasher or Phage or the Life Foundation symbiotes when they bonded to partners that and
Mm.
weren't villains.
Because they had
So like
previous experience of some kind,
Mhm.
or bonded to people who weren't completely shitty, or
mhm.
okay.
But like people have bonded to symbiotes, and one of the points of the new run, in Venom 200, you see a short story with Flash, and Flash is at this coffee shop, and then there's these dudes in these green suits that burst in from Alchemex, and they're like, "Oh, we see an symbiote in this area, blah 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 blah. We're gonna get him." And then Flash is like, "Oh fuck, they're on to me." And then they turn and they point their guns at the barista, and then the barista turns into like a symbiote, but like clearly it's not like a Venom, it's not a Carnage, it's not a super strong symbiote, it's like a civilian symbiote. And then Flash is like, wait, there are more symbiotes that stuck around after King in Black that decided not to leave Earth. Well,
Yeah,
shit,
Bun
I gotta protect him. And then he goes full Agent Venom and just blasts the motherfuckers.
just
Damn.
beats the dog shit out of them. And they're like,
Mhm.
bro, we didn't expect this. Because also one thing is that Flash's symbiote, like, because it's an anti one, it actually doesn't appear the same way as other ones do. It has like a
Mhm.
bunch of like different abilities. Like when Flash, before he got killed in the comics, he got into a fight with the Red Goblin, which is Carnage and Green Goblin put together.
Hmm.
Horrifying idea. Like they
Yeah.
really did that. Like poor Peter. But like
Oh yeah, and then
like
after that, after they beat him, Norman Osborn thought he was Cletus Cassidy.
yeah, he thought it was Chris Cassidy because Cassidy's personality dominated Norman Osborn's, and it's just like, what is wrong with
Let me look this up.
everyone
Let me look up this
involving
Red Goblin.
He's a nightmare. He's
Oh
just
Christ!
he looks so cool though. He
Yeah.
looks so fucking cool.
Damn, dude, he's like straight demonic looking motherfucker.
Hmm.
Such a cool
That's
comic.
crazy.
Ooh, I love that version of him they did for Conquest Contest of Champions. I don't play the like mobile games, but they have some really cool variant costumes.
Really cool designs. I look at it too. Like they have a few like Captain America designs that I'm like infatuated with. Like I was like, oh my god, why can't Cap like this in comics?
There's
Damn.
one that's like a mystic version of Spider-Man's costume that's like purple and green and like all these like bright like vaporwave looking colors. I want them to make I want them to make a figure of it so bad. It looks so cool.
Ooh, a vaporwave Spidey.
Yeah, that's the best way I know how to describe it. That's like not quite what it is. Let me
Yeah.
see if I can find the picture. I know my friend retweeted it not long ago. Yeah, here it is. I'm gonna go and post it in chat.
Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, it's like purple, green, and blue.
Purple, green, and blue.
Yeah, he's between Star-Lord and Iron Man.
Let me see here.
Oh shoot, hold on. I need to download that as a PNG
I
and
got
a
it. He's
GIF.
between.
Fucking shortly download.
Wow. Yeah, he looks wild, dude. That looks really
Right?
cool.
Yeah, he said that it was the spawnification of the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
That whole entire set looks awesome,
Yeah, it
dude.
does. There's not a fucking none
Oh
of
my
those
god,
looks bad.
oh my god,
Right?
Storm, Queen, Captain Marvel. We should do a Captain Marvel episode because I gotta defend Captain Marvel. People
Yeah,
shit on her
yeah.
way too
You
much.
you were on stream yesterday talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah. Like I made like a mental note of it. Like, oh, this seems like this would be a good place
That is
to
my
go.
home girl. I
Yeah,
love her so much. Everybody shits on her, and I'm like, bro,
yeah. It
you don't get
was
the context.
it was that and the one today when you were talking about Kingdom Hearts. But I was like, oh man, do we really want to touch Kingdom Hearts lore? Because that's like, I
I
don't
know
know.
everything about it. I know everything
Hell
about it.
yes.
It's so convoluted for
And
me, but it's
it's
I
like,
was
really not. That's what's crazy. It's really not, but it's only not convoluted because I played every game as they came out, and I was just like, "Oh, this goes here, this goes
well, see,
here,
yeah,
this
that's
goes
the
here."
thing. I only played Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3 and Chain of Memories. I didn't play any of the other stuff that came out. So by the time 3 hit and I was like, yo, who's that? Who's that guy? What are they
you
talking
could
about?
really skip a
Like,
lot of the games except for Birth by Sleep. Where you really fucked up was not playing Birth by Sleep.
You gotta
Birth
play
by
that one.
Sleep is basically Kingdom Hearts 0. It's like the prologue to it, and it kind of
yeah,
sets up everything that Kingdom Hearts 3 did.
yeah.
But like, what pissed me off about Kingdom Hearts 3, and I know this is a tangent, but I'm gonna wrap up in a second. So, like, in Kingdom Hearts 3, you have 2 hours of Kingdom Hearts story at the beginning, and then you go to Olympus, and then you go to the Toy Story world, and there's a little bit of Organization 13 stuff. And then nothing Kingdom Hearts happens at all. It's just a fucking Disney game until the last 3 hours. Like you go to the place that used to be Hollow Bastion, and you turn it back into the Land of Awakening or whatever it was that was called. And
Radiant
then
Garden.
yeah, Radiant Garden.
Yeah.
And then like that's when the story finally happens. After 40, 30 fucking hours of gameplay, we get back to the stuff from the very beginning. The stuff everyone wanted to see. And the thing that pisses me off more than anything, you have like 12 boss fights in the last 3 hours of that game, and they really should have been spread out across different worlds. But like instead, you have to like beat one boss, then another boss, then another boss, and it just ends up being like 3 hours of gameplay. So I fell asleep as soon as I finished Kingdom Hearts 3 because I was nodding off during the last few cutscenes. I can hardly remember it. I had
Yeah.
to go back and watch one of those like Kingdom Hearts 3 explained videos.
Yeah, I remember it
to,
kind of like
comprehend it.
dragging. I was just like, damn, isn't this fucking done yet? And I didn't
It was
realize you were
so.
so.
It was so. It was so bad.
I
It's
didn't realize you
like
were so passionate about Kingdom Hearts there,
like
Swim.
I hate to
Oh yeah.
interrupt you guys, but it's so like there's just so much horrible storytelling done. The design of the world, like I've gotten to an argument on Twitter today. Sorry to go on a Kingdom Hearts tangent. I'm really passionate about this.
Yeah.
No,
I
you're
got
totally
into an
good.
argument, and like some guy was like, "The game's not empty," and I was like, "Bro, did you play the Frozen world? There is
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do in that part of
Dude,
the game.
it's
That's the
it's
You can
longest
really
part of the
tell that
game.
Disney
it
forced them
is.
to do that world.
Yeah.
That was the longest part of the game. There was nothing to do. The Rapunzel part, there was nothing to do. There was a little bit. There was a slight bit of personality in Olympus because you could talk to the people,
Yeah.
but and in Port Royale you could go swimming and stuff like that. There was a little bit of personality, but overall, compared to one, compared to two, compared to Dream Drop, like all of the other ones,
Yeah.
they
I
felt
I
so much more
I do
alive.
have to kind of agree because I was going through some of those things thinking kind of like the same thing, like, oh man, this doesn't feel like two at all, like. But yeah, anyway, let me see if I have any more questions here that I want to throw out for Venom. So we do have the big question that you had on here, Swim, which we technically have the answer, but
Hmm.
this is a question I don't know if everybody knows. Okay, it's an important
Okay.
question, the most important question regarding Venom. Okay, if Eddie gets an erection while wrapped in the symbiote, does Venom get an erection or does the symbiote hide it?
The
I don't.
symbiote takes care of it. That is canon, and that is official canon
That was it.
because the artist from the Donny Cates run of Venom, Ryan Stegman, he tweeted that out on October 10th, 2018, mere days before or after the release of the original Venom film. Deleted it within like 2 hours, but he said the symbiote takes care of it, and you know what? That's fucking canon.
But how
If
does
the symbiote,
how does
if
the
the
symbiote
symbiote
take care of
can,
it? Is
so the
does the
symbiote
symbiote
can
hide it, or is it
remember.
like Master Chief's armor where it just jacks him off a little bit until he's good?
So
Wait,
let
Chiefs. No, wait. Chief can't get erections. Chief is castrated chemically.
I I thought like the early versions of the Mjolnir armor like handled all bodily functions, including like
so
you
He
know
can't get a hard. Chief doesn't. Chief is technically like an LGBTQ member because he's queer. He doesn't. He's like asexual.
I'll
He
have
wait, is
can't
to
that like
feel
we'll
that.
have to pose that question to Chris when
do
we
they
get him
mention
on the
that in
show.
the book?
Yeah, they did.
Like,
Like he can't. He doesn't feel attraction to people sexually.
oh
Like
my
that
god,
doesn't work.
I didn't know that. I've never known that
Like he
about
really
Master
like,
Chief.
like he really doesn't. Like he's emotionally like attentive to like Cortana,
Yeah, that's
but
why he's
like
in love with an AI, man, because the
but,
physical part don't matter.
but Chief is like he's like, oh, that's just a person. I don't really want to fuck that. Like
That's
I don't
just
want to put my
another
dick in
person.
anything.
So, okay, so does the symbiote like
The
relieve
symbiote can
him?
patch a wound. The symbiote can get rid of cancer cells. The symbiote can change your memories.
Mhm.
So if you're horny, the symbiote could either, it has two options. It can release pheromones that make you less horny, or it can just take care of it, you know? And like, I have to imagine the symbiote took care, like, it took over Spider-Man's body while
When
he
you
was
say
asleep,
take
right?
care of it, do you mean like the symbiote just like slurps the cum out of Eddie Brock?
That is
Probably
100% what I mean. And if the symbiote was taking control of Spider-Man's body while he was asleep, if you have to imagine that if a host is sexually frustrated
Uh-huh.
and they don't want to like be involved with the symbiote or they don't want to know this is happening, the symbiote's going to wait until they're asleep
Mm-hmm.
and
oh
then
oh
the symbiote, I don't know, I'm
oh.
making that up. That's just me, like my like dark sense of humor coming out. But it's a possibility. I like to imagine it's consensual. I like to imagine, but this is the thing. They can never confront this in continuity. They can never
They
imagine.
can't.
It's like Thing's dick. You like to imagine he has the dick. The closest they've ever come to showing it is you see a toilet in Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes, the cartoon from 2007 by Moon Studio or Moonbase. I forget
Yeah.
what it was called. But you see a rock grinder that's a toilet that's like his size next to the normal toilet. And it has
No.
like a grinder for rocks. So that implies that the thing shits rocks after he
He
eats. It
literally
comes out in
shits
rock
bricks.
form.
Just
Oh my
Exactly.
god.
So when Eddie Brock is in the symbiote, if he has to pee or he has to take a shit, then the symbiote just like takes care of that too. That is canon. But this is something that's fun that has been established too. You know how sometimes Venom will like excrete green goo from his tongue?
Yeah, what is that?
That's his shit and piss. That's his excrement. Right?
Oh
Now
my
think about all the
God.
times you see him licking Spider-Man's face with that long ass tongue.
Oh man, I'm
That's so fucking bewildering.
I'm just imagining Sweeney's face right now.
That's so fucking bewildering, dude. Like oh my lord.
I kind of wish I had a camera on Sween right now just for this conversation.
I'm just shaking my head like in dismay, in complete disbelief of what I'm hearing.
That's insane. These are the real questions, though. These are what people really want to know.
People are
You know?
sick.
Yeah, people are sick. We're gonna have to go tell Smokey about this shit now. You know,
Don't tell her anything. Don't tell her anything.
Feel
Keep her away.
feel
Keep
like,
her
hey,
away from the things I love, dude.
I
Like,
feel
don't
like,
tell
hey,
her
you gotta listen to the very end of our Venom episode.
keep her away from Spider-Man, dude. I don't
Oh,
want
y'all
to see
man.
just
Spider-Man with
reminded
big
me
tits. Like, I don't need that.
at the end of I think it's like or at the start of issue 48 or 49 of Immortal Hulk, Betty Banner is the Red Harpy now. And Hulk is of course the Immortal Hulk. But you see this scene, right? And like they're both getting dressed up, like getting redressed. But they're in Hulk form. So you see like giant ass gray and red Hulk pulling up his pants, and then you see She-Hulk, or I mean Red Harpy, not She-Hulk. God, that'd be gross. That'd
Yeah.
be like
Yeah.
some old man
Little-
wolf, old man Logan shit.
Yeah.
But like
Oh,
you
yeah.
see like Red Harpy, and she's like zipping up her vest and all. So it's like, you know, like they didn't just have sex, they had like monster Hulk sex.
That's so bewildering.
Hulk
I don't want to
smash
talk
for
about them
real.
having sex.
Hulk
The only-
smash.
The only sex I care about in Marvel is like the fact that Daniela Cage exists. That's it. Like, all right, okay, you know what? Jessica Jones and Luke Cage had to fuck because they have a baby.
Yeah.
Obviously, they slept with each other. But everything else is like, I don't want to think about it. Like, this is whatever. Like, I don't care about anyone fucking unless somebody's fucking Gamora. But then I'm like, you know, I respect it. Give a king respect where give a king respect where he deserves respect. You know.
Yeah. Oh man.
Speaking of Gamora, that made me think of from Bendis's run. Do y'all know the panel that I'm talking about?
Yeah,
No.
which one is it? I think I know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna put it in chat real quick. I just found it on Google Images, but it's the one where they're drinking and then Tony after they're finished,
Yeah.
his face at the bottom left.
Oh, after he fucks her, and she's like, "Yo, what the fuck?" And Richard Ryder has sex with her so many times, dude. And Richard has been like, "Fine." Richard just gets up like a champ, like, "Yeah, man,
Like
I conquered this
she break
queen,
his
woman."
pelvis, or she just got like weird genitals.
You know, wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for it. He bit off more than he can chew. Classically, Tony Stark's classic move.
Man,
Okay.
Lois and Superman are hanging out, and then, you know, it gets down to, you know, the nitty gritty for the first time. And then, wait, Clark, what the fuck is this? Why does it have pincers?
It's got pincers.
He's like, "What?"
Yeah.
He's like, "You don't. Your penis has pincers, Clark." And he's like,
Yours
Doesn't
doesn't?
everyone's penis? Doesn't your penis have pincers? He's like, what? Women don't have penises on Earth?
He's like all the stuff I saw on the internet.
He would look
All
at
right,
big
all right.
pincers
So
as his frame of reference.
Before we go too far down that rabbit hole, I want to bring us back to Swim, actually, because you just did a video on Venom, didn't you?
I did. I just did a Venom. I just did a video on Venom and Hulk, covering Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk run and Donny Cates' Venom run. You can check that out at Super Swim Team 7 on the YouTubes.
Yes, definitely do, because the information that we're covering here is tip of the iceberg stuff. But we specifically design this podcast to be that way. We don't. There are people out there doing the deep dives on the lore like you, doing full videos and stuff. We want to do the conversations. We want to do the things that you kind of heard of, the obscure nonsense that just comes up in comic book conversations and that kind of stuff. That's what we want to cover most when it comes to this channel. But for anyone who really wants to dig into the Venom lore, especially all of the stuff that we've been talking about, you go over to Swim's channel. We'll link it in descriptions where we can. Is there anything else, Swim, that you wanna plug before we wrap this up?
Well, like I said, my YouTube channel, Super Swim Team 7. I'd greatly appreciate it if you checked it out. I've got a couple of Halloween videos coming out. The first of which was that Hulk and Venom video we just mentioned, how Hulk and Venom became cosmic gods. The next couple of videos are going to be on American Horror Story and Silent Hill 3.
Nice.
Thanks.
And Sween, do you want to take us out?
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to yet another episode of Legends and Lore. We appreciate every like, subscribe. We appreciate if you guys would like, comment, subscribe, help out the algorithm. And yeah, we'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you again for our guest coming in and dropping mad knowledge about Venom. Please, guys, check him out. And other
Thank
than
you very
that,
much.
take care and see you guys soon.
Bye bye.
Have a good